Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3 Iron, and today we are doing a mid-league economy update. We'll be taking a look at things to buy, things to sell, and doing some general price checks on some of the more fantastical, amazing items that are floating around in Synthesis League presently. If at any point in time you'd like to jump ahead to a particular portion of our discussion today or revisit any of the different topics that we've gone over, you can do so by checking out the timestamps that are placed above my slightly balding forehead, and those timestamps are of course hot linked down below in the video description for your pleasure. So first off, taking a look at the Synthesis Softcore Trade League currency, we see that Mirrors of Calandra right now are selling for roughly 22,000 chaos-ish. But the big news here is that there actually are Mirrors of Calandra that are being traded in Softcore Synthesis League. There are several of them that are available, and of course in Hardcore Trade League it is much less reliable. Most of the people that actually are lucky enough to get a mirror hold on to it, and there generally isn't much mirror trading going on in Hardcore. But anyway, back to Softcore currency prices. You've got Exalted Orbs right now, as of the filming of this video, are sitting at about 156 to 155 on the trade scale. We're at about a similar place right now with Exalts to Chaos ratio, about mid-league. This is pretty regular now, really since Incursion League, since last summer, where we saw a general price spike in Exalts that seem to rest now in between 140 to 170 chaos at about the mid-league level. That's usually within 15 or so chaos. It's usually their new resting point, where you can safely say that, hey, we are presently solidly in the mid-league economy. That's about where you can see it happen. When Exalts aren't quite to that point yet, when they're still below 140 to 135-ish, then you still know that they've got a significant ways to go, and you can still be buying into Exalts on a regular daily basis. One trick that I've got that is a specific tip for those of you maybe that are new to the channel or that are new to trading or new to the Path of Exile economy in general is just to convert your chaos into Exalteds when you're done with a play session, because chances are, especially when you see these early to mid-league price differences, sometimes overnight or in between your play sessions, maybe even if you have to go multiple days without playing Path of Exile, converting your currency into Exalts can actually reward you several times over with chaos, just because you've simply let your currency sit as Exalts rather than as chaos, and they've appreciated in value rather than depreciated in value. Blessings of Chayula come up next at about 60 chaos per. Orbs of Annulment, these are the big story, and this is why the thumbnail for this particular video has got a bunch of Orbs of Annulment in it. Early league, I just have to give myself a little pat on the back there. I do have freakishly long arms, so I can do that, reach around and pat myself on the back, because Orbs of Annulment were something that we called very early in the league as being necessary for synthesis crafting, and that their prices would be impacted greatly by synthesis. And sure enough, they are skyrocketing. They're still going up right now, up 11% over the last 7 days. And it is ridiculous to see how Orbs of Annulment have gone from like a 5 to 6C item when they first came out to now being a 42C item whenever one drops. That is huge. And way back, I want to say that was right after our first week of the economy's look, and I went out and I advised all of you to go out and buy as many Orbs of Annulment as you could. I, of course, was hoarding as many as I could. And I was actually able to flip and use my base of currency by purchasing a bunch of Orbs of Annulment in Hardcore to actually build up my currency base for all of the goals that I wanted to hit this league. Ancient Orb comes in at the number 6 spot in Softcore, with Harbinger Orb and then Divine Orb rounding out our top 7 before we start getting into some of the shards and some more blessings. Jumping over into the Hardcore Synthesis League, I know there's only a small portion of players that actually still play Hardcore Synthesis, but that's where I'm playing this league, and I did want to comment on this really quickly. That Exalted Orbs are sitting at about 86 to 88. They are fluctuating a little bit still. In Hardcore, there's still some movement. So, of course, the same advice that I just gave to all of you Softcore players is true for you Hardcore players. Convert your currency at the end of your play session into Exalted Orbs. But then Orbs of Annulment are nearly 50 chaos per at this point in Hardcore Trade Synthesis. So For those of you, again, that are still looking to make a buck, I'm not going to advise you at this point in time to continue to buy into Orbs of Annulment. If you're playing hardcore, I think this is pretty much where they're going to stabilize at. And then I think somehow, some way, somewhere, as the currency conversion happens, which is the end of the league, Orb of Annulments will either dip in price in order to match standard, right? Like, it can only do one of two things. It can either dip in price in hardcore in order to match the prices in standard, or standard prices will need to appreciate and go up and grow quite significantly. So I'm going to leave that up to you. This is why I have significantly gotten out of the Orb of Annulment business right now, because I've made a ton of currency on it. Maybe there's going to be other streamers, other YouTubers, other sources for your knowledge that are going to tell you to stay in the Orb of Annulment business, but I'm going to tell you it has grown its biggest growth that it's going to see, and potentially this is really what it all hangs on in terms of the value of the Orbs of Annulment. If Synthesis goes core, and that's a whole other discussion, that's not one that we're going to get into in this video, it's one that we've been basically having as an extended discussion for the entire league as Synthesis. But if Synthesis goes core, Orbs of Annulment will be here as a mainstay top 5 currency item in Path of Exile until other currency items, crop up and take over as power creep, enters into the economy. But Orbs of Annulment, if Synthesis sticks around, will be still top tier. They're still going to be used and necessary. Those of you that are going to argue, well, but Iron, if fractured items and Synthesis goes core, we're going to interact with fractured items a heck of a lot less because, league mechanics are always more accessible during the league than they are during standard and during the regular rest of the gameplay. So while that's true, I think the reason why Orbs of Annulment are going to hold their value at that point is because fractured items are going to be a lot less common. People who are crafting are going to be a lot less risky when it comes to actually synthesizing their items, and they're going to want to make sure that they use Orbs of Annulment in order to get the specific rolls that they want on their item, because it will be cheaper to even use several Orbs of Annulment on an item and more time sensitive to use several Orbs of Annulment on a fractured item should they go core than it will be to potentially procure more fractured bases for more attempts in the synthesizer. So I think Orbs of Annulment are here to stay if Synthesis goes core. If Synthesis doesn't go core, then expect Orbs of Annulment to drop in their value. So consider that a fair warning. I told you, hey, early on in the league, buy in, and those of you that listened probably made a bunch of currency. I hope you're listening to me now and you're paying attention to whether or not Synthesis goes core, because depending on whether or not it goes core or not, Orbs of Annulment could crash overnight, or they could spike and stay at the same price where they're at. All right, so looking at a couple of different specific things, here's Mirror of Calandra's prices presently in Synthesis League. You're looking at several that are being sold for 149-ish to 150-ish. That looks to be about the present going rate, is about the high 140s to low 150s. I have taken the liberty of grabbing one of these players that right now he's got 7 Mirrors of Calandra, and I've simply done a trade search based on his user name. So many of you that are newer to Path of Exile don't necessarily know this trick. If you are looking to make currency, and I've gotten this question from several of you in Guild, on Discord, as well as a couple. I had somebody email me this, which was great. I was so glad that somebody actually used the email address. It's linked down below in the video description. But several people have asked the question, hey, we don't know how to make currency mid-league. So many different people talk about currency early league and league starting, but not many people talk about mid-league and end-league economics. So one of the things that you can do is simply find somebody who is still making a ton of currency and who has a ton of currency on them, and then follow what they're doing. You can follow what they're actually selling, what sort of markets and what sort of pricing strategies they are following. So we followed this one particular user that has several different Mirrors of Calandra, and right off from the bat, of course, he's got this awesome set of boots that are Onslaught Boots. This is in softcore Synthesis, that are up for Fractured Foxhole service, which that, if you're looking at that and you're going, oh, that's so far out of my price range, I would never be able to craft those boots. Don't worry about it. There are going to be certain things that people with multiple mirrors are going to be able to do that you won't, but there are going to be some other things that they do that you will be able to replicate. So, for instance, he is selling some divination cards. He's flipping Apprentice Cartographer's Sextants, as well as Journeyman Cartographer's Sextants, as well as Master's Cartographer's Sextants. So, for those of you that are a part of our wonderful G3 community here that have zero interest in flipping and trading currency, that's fine. Just recognize this is a legitimate way to still make currency, even in the mid-league, when there's still a persistent amount of players who are still grinding out challenges and still enjoying the league. So that is still a way to make currency. Also, you can see here that there are several different rings that he's got up for selling. Gifts from above, the diamond ring, Mark of the Shaper, opal ring. You can just see that he's got some uniques here that he's listing at some relatively high prices. He's got an Aziri's Splendor over here listed for 50C. Then he's got another Aziri's Splendor over here listed for 100C. I just want you to take a look at this. All right, just look at these two different Aziri's Splendors. Just realize this. This Aziri's Splendor can roll from 200 to 220 on its increased armor, and then he's got 76 max energy shield, and then 20 to all elemental resistances, and then just flat 100 life, flat 100 mana on kill. That's his first one that's for sale for 50. Then he's got another one that actually has worse rolls, and it's priced at 100 chaos. Some of you are going to say, wow, why would you do this? Well, I'm going to simply tell you this really quickly. It's totally fair for you to list things, and those of you that want to get into the ethics of this, those of you that want to get into the morality of it, that's fine. Leave us a comment down below. I'm happy to interact with those conversations as they come up. Some people that make big currency don't do it from scamming people. They don't do it from RMT. They don't do it from willfully shortchanging somebody. Sometimes what people do is they legitimately have buyout tabs that are simply set at 10 chaos, 20 chaos, 50 chaos, maybe 100 chaos, maybe 3x. I myself have a jewel tab. This is my own personal strategy. I myself just have a jewel tab, and every single jewel that I pick up, regardless of what item level, regardless of what it is, whether it's a base jewel or an abyss jewel, it doesn't matter. It goes in a 1x tab. That's what I do. Every single jewel I pick up, I don't price it, I ID it, and I throw it in a 1x tab. There have been several jewels that I have sold that I've looked at and gone, why are these combinations valuable to anybody? When I've done a price check, these are like 5 chaos, but people message me and they want to buy them. At that point, that is a happy customer that's happy with the jewel that they got, and I'm a happy seller. So, don't want to get into that too much, but I just want you to recognize that there are some of these prices that are up there, and you're going, why would anybody buy this? Well, maybe at some points of the day, you're the only person online selling that particular item, and so that makes it very, very valuable. You can look right here and see there are 2 level 3 Empower supports that are being sold for 100 chaos. Again, this advocates for the theory that he's just dumping stuff in a 100 chaos tab, because level 3 corrupted Empower supports they're already corrupted. You can't corrupt them to level 4 to get to their max. They're not worth 100 chaos. And so the fact that he's selling them for 100 chaos, again, he's just hoping, hey, if somebody really wants an Empower support and they need it, I'll be here and be selling it for 100 chaos. You can keep going on through here. It's going to scroll down throughout all of the increasing different prices that are on here. But I just wanted to encourage you all to find somebody who's selling a mirror, or conversely, find somebody who's selling and flipping exalts, and go take a look at the rest of their account. Go actually observe what it is that they're selling during the middle of the league, so that way you can know, hey, here's somebody that's got a proven track record of making currency. How is it that they're still making currency as they're still interacting and engaging in the league? All right, enough of that technique. On to more stats. So Scarabs right now in both leagues, in both softcore synthesis and hardcore synthesis, are both holding pretty steady in their value, and that's because, of course, as leagues go on, as you get further and further into a league, more and more players have finished builds that are min-maxed, or more and more players are reaching towards their peak of where they're going to get at in terms of their playtime and their goals for their character. So one of the ways to augment your playtime as you are playing Path of Exile is, of course, add some targeted encounters that you would like to interact with, and Scarabs are one of the best ways to do that. So right now, you've got the top spots in softcore synthesis being, of course, the 3 sulfite scarabs, because people want to be playing in delve and want to be delving as much as possible as they dig deep and greedily for those wonderful, glorious fossils and bosses that can be so rewarding in Path of Exile. Then in softcore, you've also got the bestiary scarab as well as the gilded divination scarab, because people are still magic finding in softcore synthesis for divination cards. When you look over at the hardcore synthesis league, prices look a lot different. We're not going to pay so much attention to prices, because prices between hardcore synthesis and softcore synthesis, there's always a differentiation between the two of them. So don't pay so much attention to, the prices on this one are, the prices on this Scarab seem to be 6 to 7, chaos different from what it is in softcore league. Don't worry so much about that. Simply look at the value. The value across the board in softcore to hardcore synthesis is consistent in that the top 3 sellers are always sulfite scarabs. People want to delve. It doesn't matter if it's hardcore, it doesn't matter if it's softcore, people want to delve across the board. Delve, right now, besides for Breach, I think Delve is the consensus simply best addition to the game over the last several years, because I don't read or see or hear anybody saying, oh, I hate Delve and I never want to do Delve. And those people who don't want to do it, maybe the reason why I'm not hearing it is because people just don't do it. You don't go out of your way to buy it, but it's still an incredibly lucrative thing. In terms of an economic value, an incredibly marketable, an incredibly opportunistic market to still get in for those of you that are still playing throughout the mid-league. Now, one of the primary differences between hardcore and softcore synthesis league is that you've got cartography scarabs that actually come out before divination scarabs, and that's because in hardcore leagues in general, there's a lot less magic finding going on. Magic finding for divination cards is incredibly dangerous. A lot of the times you're just going to die. And even in softcore, you're going to die a bunch, even when you're running with a support. We're not just talking about buffs and auras to your character. We're just talking about the amount of HP pool that you have if you get touched, if you are a full-on increased item quantity magic finder. The amount of times that you will die is probably very, very high. So in hardcore synthesis, what people are going for, rather than divination scarabs, people are going for cartography scarabs, because people always, always, always need maps in hardcore leagues. And that is true now more than ever with hardcore synthesis, especially with all of the different drop rates that we've had and all of the different both admissions from GGG that maybe they screwed up a little bit early on in the league with their map drop algorithm, and then they've gone in and they've tried to correct it, and they've allowed maps to drop now in synthesis. And anyway, bottom line being, gilded cartography scarabs, polished cartography scarabs are both very, very valued and are going to stay valued throughout the rest of synthesis league. So if you want to target farm some scarabs, if you're farming your betrayal encounters, which I know not a lot of people do in hardcore, but if you are, that would be something that I would recommend you do, either the sulfite scarabs or the cartography scarabs, simply because they're going to hold their value and their value is going to increase throughout the league. So a couple of specific trade lookups here for us to check and just see where the health of both leagues are at. These are the hardcore headhunters that are available, and you can see right here we've got a shaped headhunter that is coming in at the top spot for an evaluation of 100 exalts, and then other than that, headhunters in hardcore are 40 exalts, and that's what they were all the way back like within the first couple of weeks of hardcore synthesis. And the reason for this, again, is because not so many people use headhunters in hardcore. Not so many people are magic finding. Not so many people want to go super ultra, speedy boy, becoming the fastest thing in the galaxy. A lot of people in hardcore synthesis will play the game at a slower rate because you simply need to be more careful about whatever it is that's around the next corner, especially if you're rocking, several exalts or maybe hundreds of exalts worth of gear, maybe mirror tier gear. You just don't want to get blown up because you accidentally were going too fast. In softcore, there are a lot more headhunters. There's 38 of them compared to 4 in hardcore synthesis. And the prices are a little bit more expensive, but not terribly more so. So the difference being 40 exalts to about 51 exalts. And remember, not all of these are corrupted. A couple of these are corrupted. Here's 2, 3 of them, I think, that were corrupted. Oh, that guy must have gone offline. Yep, there he is. Oh, that one's not corrupted, though. So basically, the holding price in softcore is between 51 to 53 exalts. And not all of them are corrupted, so you can get a pretty good deal right now on a headhunter if you are playing softcore synthesis. If you've never collected a headhunter before and never played around with it, I would highly recommend that you convert some of your currency over and give it a shot. It is an incredibly fun item, and it's, again, with the caveat, as always for this whole league, it's an incredibly fun item for softcore because, again, you are going to go very, very fast. You are going to blow tons of stuff up. And occasionally you may miss out on reading something that's very, very dangerous to your build and accidentally kills you. So play around with it. Buy one, but buy one for softcore. Don't buy one for hardcore. All right. Lastly, I wanted to look over a couple of different synthesized recipes that are very, very valuable. And the value on all of these items that we're going to take a look at are going to skyrocket if synthesis does not go core. So remember how earlier we were talking about how annulment orbs potentially can still maintain their price and potentially grow, or can potentially take a nosedive into the dirt depending on whether or not Synthesis goes core. Well, these items are almost the opposite. It's almost the opposite phenomenon of what's going to happen with annulment orbs. So if Synthesis goes core, these items are going to hold their value or maybe potentially depreciate in their value. They may lose some of their value because these items are going to be around and available, and it's a part of the core game now forever, and everybody can be working towards it in standard. If, however, Synthesis does not go core, I'm not saying right now whether or not I think it will or it won't. I don't think it will. I think all of these items are going to go legacy. But depending on what happens with Synthesis, these items are going to be incredibly valued, or they're going to hold their value at about the same prices where they're at right now. So this is the Gain Arcane Surge on hit with spells recipe. These are 21 different rings that are available in regular Synthesis League, and you can see the cheapest one of these, if you just want to scour it and start recrafting on it, is 5 Exalted. That's what it is in softcore right now. And you can scroll up, you can scroll down on these searches and just continue to see. There are a whole bunch of these. This guy's pricing his at 100 Exalted. Some of these, of course, aren't online, but you got 35 Exalted, 20 Exalted, 50 Exalted, 12 Exalted. They are just all over the place here. Several Exalted worth of rings, and these rings are going to skyrocket in value if Synthesis does not go core, because there's simply no other way for you to reliably say, hey, I'm just going to have Arcane Surge on hit with my spells. Like, I'm just going to have that. And you don't need 2 of these rings because it's just on hit with spells. It's not like there's a cooldown or an internal, changing system that you have to watch out for, like with Poet's Pen or anything like that. It's just if you hit something with the spell while you have this ring equipped, you will now have Arcane Surge. That's really good, and it's only going to take up 1 slot. It's not a unique, it's a rare, which means you can craft things on there like Energy Shield, Resistances, Life, all sorts of damage. Like, the options are insane, and these rings are going to be really, really good. Regardless if Synthesis goes core or not. They're already really, really good. But if Synthesis doesn't go core and these go legacy, man, there's only going to be 21 of them around in softcore. Meanwhile, hardcore, I did just want to do this search because hardcore, like, nobody has these rings. It's amazing. These rings are really, really tough to craft. And hardcore, I think there's only 2 guys that I've chatted with all league that have even been attempting these. And then Shurna is one of these guys. And he successfully actually hit it. So good on him for actually getting one. But the value of this, in hardcore at least, is it's going to be one of a kind if Synthesis doesn't go core. Like, if Synthesis goes legacy, then these are one of a kind items, at least in terms of hardcore. All right, looking over at boots, the very, very valuable Onslaught craft on boots. You can see there are several boots that are up for fossil crafting. That's what these fossil images mean. Whenever you see something up for this and you message the person, please, please, please don't get angry with the person that they're not selling the whole item for a fossil. It is there for a fossil crafting service, which means there will be a service fee attached to whatever goals you have crafting for the item. If you've got questions about that, I will link down below in the video description what a mirror service. We've done a couple of videos on what a mirror service is, and essentially a fractured fossil service or a fossil service craft is essentially the same thing. So you can see right here the note that this guy, that Lotos, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, that Lotos has put on here is price 1 fractured fossil, and the fee is 2x. So in order to interact with this guy to get a copy of these boots, you need to provide the fractured fossil plus 2x. If you want more details on that, go watch our mirror description, our mirror service description video. But for the most part, these boots are relatively cheap. You got 2x over here, 3x, 4x, 4x, and the primary reason for why these became so cheap are because when the patch went through that allowed for essences and fossil crafting to apply to synthesized items, everybody overnight was able to make boots like this. And what I mean by that is literally within an hour of that patch going live, I had live searches set for boots with Onslaught in both leagues. And we went from like 4 items in softcore synthesis and like 1 in hardcore synthesis to, I believe it was over 68 different boots within an hour of that patch going live. Just the number of people that were sitting on essences and sitting on fossils waiting to craft on boots and waiting to combine boots once they could. So I do just want to throw that out to you guys just to be aware. These boots are probably the least expensive in terms of if things go legacy. They'll still be incredibly expensive, but just take a look right now. There's 191 out there in softcore synthesis. So these by far are the most common thing that's out there in terms of like the top tier, really awesome, cool, craftable stuff from Synthesis. In hardcore, we've still only got 3 of them. One is a mirrored, really, really terrible pair of boots that's up for 2 exalts. Another is unidentified. It's got Onslaught with 12 to cold resistance. It's up for 45 exalted. And another one is up for mirror service from Guardian KJ. All right, moving on to our last thing that we're going to take a look at today are the bows that have the implicit +1 to socketed gems on them. I was shocked when I looked at softcore synthesis and saw that Synthesin DOT has got this listed as a mirrored item for 5x. This is incredible because he's hit both the +1 to level of socketed gems and +1 to socketed support gems. I understand that it's a mirrored item, which means that you cannot craft on it in any way, shape, or form. It means that you can't use chromatics on it if you want to recolor the item, which means you're stuck using some setup that uses 4 green and 1 blue, 1 red. I get that. I get that it doesn't have all of the best rolls on it, that it's got global accuracy and physical damage and projectile and light radius. I get that. I still couldn't believe that it was up for 5x. That was an incredible price for it to be up for 5x. Then you've got a bunch of others of these bows that are basically going to range between 7 to 10x. And these bows are incredible. When you look for the bases on these, I've had this discussion several times with several different people. The reason why the most valued bow is the thicket bow is because of its high attack speed. So when you look at the attack speed on the synthesis bow for thicket bows, they're up there at 1.5. Whereas when you look at some of these other bows, you look at, let's say, the highborn bow, its attacks is 1.45. You look at, what's this, a ivory bow, it's 1.42. You're looking at, what's this? This is another synthesized dire wind harbinger bow. It's at 1.2 attack speed. So these attack speeds aren't the best. I'm not saying they're still not bonkers bows. I'm just saying they're not the best. So that's why there is a premium right now on thicket bows and getting that combination of +1 to level of socketed gems. The price, of course, goes up, and as you start to get higher and higher, you will see that there are so many of these people that have got great rolls on their bows. This one right here, the Blight Breeze synthesized compound bow, look at its attack speed. It's only 1.3, but he's got on there the +1 to level of socketed gems, +1 to level of socketed gems, +1 to level of socketed support gems. And he's selling that. That is by far not the perfect itemized, min-maxed bow, and yet he's selling that for 15 exalted. So if you've got one that's better, or you want to still craft one that's better, now is the time to do it. Mid-league crafting, there's still a bunch of money to be made because not everybody wants to get into crafting. What a shock that Synthesis League is a league about crafting, and not everybody enjoys crafting. So if mid-league you're looking for a way to make some real big money, you can still throw a bunch of money at bows for the +1 socketed gems implicit and still make a whole bunch of money. Here's the comparison. In Hardcore League, you've got your cheapest one that is not a thicket bow. It is a Citadel bow. It is up for 12 exalted. Then the next cheapest is a thicketed bow. Thicketed is a thicket bow, and it is up for 30 exalted. It's got +2 to level of socketed gems, +1 to socketed gems, +1 to socketed gems. Again, not the best bow out there. Not the mirror tier bow that everybody wants to have, but it's still going for 30 exalted. So there's plenty of currency available mid-league if you're looking for it. So that's what I've got for you guys today as we chat about mid-league synthesis economy principles and updates. Go ahead and leave us a comment down below with some of your own tales, what you're doing throughout the middle of Synthesis League to still generate currency. Are you flipping currency? Are you messing around with crafting and making great endgame crafts for other players that maybe other players are maybe a little too scared to actually dive into and synthesize items themselves? Leave us a comment down below, and as always, I hope that you've enjoyed the video and that today is the day that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you right after you finish one of those awesome synthesized crafting projects.
Nice patrons, yes, good patrons. They're so kind and supportive.
I can't believe you watched that thing. That was a good job. You did it. You got through the whole video. Yay!